For days, ministers have filed into the National Assembly to defend trillion naira proposals before Senate and House committees. It is a constitutional right of scrutiny. But this year, the sessions are being defined not just by questions, but by chaos. The Minister of Works, David Umahi, defended 3.4 trillion naira. What followed was not scrutiny, but shouting. Heated exchanges, lawmakers openly confronting one another over whose road projects made the cut and who was sidelined. But that was not the only flashpoint. Earlier, the Minister of Steel Development, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, clashed with her own committee chairman, Senator Patrick Ndubueze. Her charge, disrespect, her grievance. She was denied adequate opportunity to engage the minister. 2 ministries, 2 explosive sessions, one thread running through both chambers, the growing demand for accountability and the gaps that keep emerging when the numbers are placed on the table. Now, this morning on Daybreak, we examine the fault lines in this year's defense, what is really going on behind the confrontations, and what do these gaps tell us about oversight, transparency, and the fight for who controls the narrative and the contracts. Joining us now for the discussion is Emmanuel Osemeka, public affairs commentator. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming to Daybreak.
Thank you.
All right, now we've seen what has been going on. As we've mentioned, 2026 will carry a lot before we get into 2027 and the elections. Now we've seen the shouting match, should I say, between the lawmakers during a review or defense of the 3.4 trillion naira budget. Now, what followed really, I would say, was a shocker to Nigerians, and at some point might not be to others. And we still saw the confrontation between Senator Natasha Uduaghan during that committee meeting with the chairman of the committee, Senator Patrick Ndubueze. And people might say that the friction is still going on with her and other senators as well. Now, it just boils down to accountability and transparency. What do you think is going on with all the flare-ups that is happening at this moment?
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me. I think it's very clear to the discerning minds that the National Assembly, especially the Senate, the 10th Senate, is under heavy pressure. I say that because the recent decisions, being taken by the 10th Senate, shows clearly that the 10th Senate is anti-people. The 10th Senate has chosen to be 100% rubber stamp Senate. Whatever the executive desires, that is what the 10th Senate is willing to push forward. You recall that currently the 10th Senate has, the APC in the 10th Senate has about 73 or 75 senators within their kitty. So already they have more than the 2/3 majority of the chamber. And so what it means is that the moment the executive says jump, the next question will be, how high do you want us to jump? Now, what you see over time is that the very few, in the majority would naturally have their say. And of course, the majority will have their way. So the skirmishes you hear once in a while these days stems from the fact that the minority will always have their say. In fact, in this 10th Senate, the minority does not even have a say. It is more like we are lording it over you. If you listen to Senator Nweboli, you hear him clearly, tell his fellow senator that I am in the majority, I'm in the ruling party, and I can as well sit over you.
Oh, wow.
Yes, that was a very unparliamentary statement. That gentleman does not have the maturity to be a senator. He's very careless with his words. He has no single respect for human being, let me even use that word advisedly, I would have said, oh, he has no single respect for women, because he's been shown over and over that he can be quite condescending, he can be very reckless with words, he's very rude, he's uncultured, and is unbecoming of a senator. He does not understand parliamentary ethics. So you see him at every turn, wherever someone who he reveres, or someone who he plays to the gallery for, or someone who he considers to be a benefactor, you see him go as low as possible. He's ready to fight on national television. He's ready to do whatever it takes just to show that his paymasters are happy. So what you see playing out is that normally the parliamentary practice is that minority will have their say, the majority will have their way. And in some cases where certain bills or motion or whatever it is, is pushed forward and it is in the national interest, you end up seeing that there is no minority or majority at that time. But in this particular Senate, you will see clearly that there is a clear dichotomy between the majority and the minority.
Now,
and of course,
I would want to ask what happened to dialogue at this point, having a clear and understanding dialogue, as we've seen the shouting match that really happened between David Umahi while defending the 3.4 trillion naira and Adams Oshiomhole, and the words that were exchanged, telling someone that I'm a senator or I'm a minister, you cannot talk to me like that. Having to put that on the table instead of facing what the issue is at hand.
So this goes back to why many people, began to push for us to go to parliamentary system. Because the parliamentary system sort of, puts everybody in check. Where both the prime minister or the president or whoever it is that is at the helm of affairs is also a parliamentarian. So there's always a Q&A session. So the opposition is always at their best at that time within that practice. We try to copy a few things from the UK system, but we're not practicing the parliamentary system. We're practicing the presidential system. We try to copy some things from the American system, but we're not practicing the American type of democracy. American type of democracy is more of a true federalist system.
So it's a mix and match
so
at this point.
What we practice looks like unitary system. It looks like a democracy, but it's more like...
There's no definite...
It's very difficult to define. When former President Olusegun Obasanjo says that, no, yes, we're practicing democracy, but we must identify our democracy to be like the Nigerian type of democracy. I don't know what the Nigerian type of democracy really is, but the reality is that the politicians will choose what they want to do when it favors them. So when you hear somebody like Adams Oshiomhole talking about the budgets that has not even taken cognizance of roads that leads to his senatorial district, for example. We have this Abuja to Benin express road that's been ongoing since the days of President Olusegun Obasanjo. It's not completed. In fact, a greater portion of that road has failed. Some of them have been constructed over and over and over. Between Kotonkarfi and in Kogi State, between Kotonkarfi and the border of Edo State, Okpela, is unmotorable.
Definitely.
In 2026, and we have a works minister. Their priority today is the coastal road for whatever is worth. Now, many governors have begun to play politics with it in the name of that and that. They forget that they have just barely 1 year to go. You cannot start a project that you cannot complete. There is no guarantee you complete that project when another government comes. The previous government began to, repair some of our arterial roads, our truncated roads. This government have neglected all our truncated roads. Go across the country. Most of our truncated roads, federal highways, are unmotorable. That's one of the reasons why insecurity is on the rise. Because if you fix the roads, then motorists can go easily and quickly. That's why accident is on the increase. So when the likes of Senator Adams Osemeka, who many people believe is supposed to be a pro-people, haven't come from the labor movement. Unfortunately, when it comes to politics,
it's a different
ballgame entirely. He tries so much to show that he's a party man. He tries so much to be loyal to the president, because when he vied for the office of the governor and he couldn't get the ticket of PDP, it was Asiwaju Bola Tinubu that gave him the ticket to ACN, that gave him the platform to become governor. So many of them, you see there, if you look critically and take a look at their history antecedent, you will see that they've gotten one favor or the other from the sitting president. That's why they are cowering to his wishes and caprices. So,
Osemeka, there has been a fierce debate over removing the requirement for real-time uploads to the IRF portal. So, is the Senate's argument about poor internet connectivity a valid technical concern or a political strategy to maintain manual control?
The Senate is just preparing for what they have already planned as a political party to do in 2027. Rig the election and send it to go to court. There is no reason to tell us in 2026 that there is no internet.
But they were hell-bent that there's a lot of poor internet connectivity in Nigeria.
I don't know when they became technological experts. There is no part of Nigeria today that you do not have network. There is no part of Nigeria. For God's sake, there is Starlink. Starlink is not a broadband internet system. It is an, what do you call it? It's a satellite-based system. INEC can deploy Starlink. Look at the budget INEC is pushing for the election.
Billions.
Look at the budget INEC is pushing. In fact, it was amazing to hear that INEC was planning to build a hospital for INEC staff within their budget. It took Senator Adams Osemeka, who in some, most of the time he's quite eloquent. He's quite studious when it comes to certain things. But sometimes you see him, he chooses not to speak. It took Senator Adams Osemeka for us to know that the Independent National Electoral Commission was planning to build a hospital for INEC staff in Abuja. And I was happy to hear some of the questions Senator Adams Osemeka asked the Senate team, the INEC team. It is not your mandate to build hospitals. So if you build a hospital in Abuja, your staff in Ekpoma or in Benin City, if they fall sick, will you ferry them to Abuja to be treated, or is the hospital squarely for INEC staff in Abuja? Well, so you must have what you call interagency dependence. There is the Ministry of Health. There are hospitals in the FCT. What stops INEC from creating a medical insurance for their team and send them to the best hospitals, if that is what they desire? Why waste taxpayers' money? What you see going on in Nigeria today is what one of my friends has called budgetary sploshing, where every year you see the same budgetary allocation for the same thing. It is only in Nigeria that government buys vehicles every year. It is only in Nigeria that government buys computers every year. It is only in Nigeria that government buys furniture every year. Only in Nigeria. We use vehicles once a year. The following year, we buy the same set of vehicles. Go and take a look at the budget of 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. You'll be shocked to see the same number of vehicles replicated every year.
Then what happens to the vehicles that were replaced?
That is where the National Assembly is failing, because the National Assembly has the power of oversight. I've not seen the National Assembly sit with the MDAs, to question the performance of their budget. The Ministry of Health said that out of their 287 billion naira budget for last year, they only got 35 million.
There are lots of ministries that have complained about the budget not being fulfilled or being shortchanged when it comes to acquire or being given the budget. Now, looking at what is going on, as you mentioned, every year there's duplicity when it comes to the figures in the budget, and aside from that we have padding as well, and aside from that in some cases, there are increase in funds that are not necessary to be increased. Now, how is it possible to be able to track what is needed to be done when it comes to the budget, allocation of those budgets, and making sure that those funds reach the people or the ministries or departments or agencies that need to get those funds in order for the work to be done, and then overseeing all the contracts? You know, that is where we get a lot of issues in allocating contracts and not being able to keep up in having accountability, transparency,
supervision.
and supervision and overseeing everything that is going on.
So you see, the major problem we've had over the years in Nigeria is that we've continued this envelope system. The envelope system makes it impossible for you to have foolproof implementation. One of the things I give to our very good friend, whom we love to hate, is Emmanuel Osemeka. You know, is that there's something about him that you like, but there's quite a lot. His politics might not be good, but when it comes to certain things, he's quite good at it. He's one person who sat down and said that, look, that one of the reasons the government or several governments are unable to start projects and finish is because of their budgeting system. He said you cannot budget for a 100-kilometer road and you have a 4-year tenure, and in year 1 you budget 25%. The mobilization to site will take almost 50%. Just mobilization to site. Why give the contractor 25%? Then the contractor will fail. So you see that most of his projects, he gives heavy advance payments, then gives very crazy timeline. And he's one of the few administrators you see that will give a contract and give a timeline for completion and consistently following up. Maybe because of the politics he plays, he tries to make sure that he blocks that area. I'm using him as an example, which many people may not like, but that is the truth. That is our truth. We run an envelope system in Nigeria, and President Tinubu's administration has even made it more cumbersome. Don't forget that in 2026, as we sit today, we are running 3 budget cycles. 24, 25, and 26 budgets. That's what we're running right now. And I haven't heard any of the senators question the ministers
About the two
two previous budgets. So the challenge is that our politicians have selective amnesia. My name is misspelled. Okay? So it's very important that we situate our problem. Our problem is that our politicians do not understand the job they have, either because they have not employed the right staff, or the National Assembly bureaucracy do not have the right competencies to do the needful.
I was about to get to that. Do you believe that they have the, should I say, know-how of the procedures in making sure that everything, the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed?
If you look at the National Assembly as a whole, both the Senate and the House of Reps, you can pick out 1, 2, 3, or 4. At best, if you combine the 2 chambers, you can probably pick maybe maximum of 20 members of the Senate and the House of Reps, whom you know that, okay, yes, this ones I've dotted is owned, can represent himself. Majority of the people you see there have no clue. Listen to listen to them when they present their motions. You see corrections. Even the Senate president, many times he makes mistakes. I've heard Senator Ndume on a regular basis correct the Senate president on votes and proceedings. Why? Senator Ndume is one of the oldest senators in the chamber. In fact, he's been in the National Assembly since 2003. So when you talk about parliamentary practice, ethics, there are few that understand it. then there are a few of them also who you can, vouch that these people have employed research team within their fold. Because you see, parliamentary business is about research. That's why you see people like somebody like Adams Oshomole, most of the time when he speaks from a point of knowledge, from a place of deep research. That's why you see him, whenever he poses questions, it's as if it's confrontational. Why? Because he does his homework well. That's why sometimes some of us are really a bit disappointed with him because we expect more from him. He's quite cerebral, right? And he's someone who you know that if he's on your side, definitely you will get the right dividend. But unfortunately, we play more politics in Nigeria, and especially at the National Assembly, than we even consider the generality of the populace. So if you look critically at the budget defense so far, you will see clearly that a lot of the things that's been said has nothing to do with me and you. A lot of the things that is out there has nothing to do with me and you. And it's one thing to budget. It's another thing for the president to tell the minister of finance to release the money. Nigeria will make all the money they need to make. NRA says their plan is to raise 40 trillion from taxes this year. What is the total budget for this year? Just from taxes alone, their target is 40 trillion. In 2025, they claim they raised, is it 30 trillion or 20-something trillion? Well, it remains to be seen. And don't forget that 40 trillion is going to come from you. And
if we can remember, at a point, the president last year said that all the targets have been met. And at the end of the day, it has seen that borrowing here, loans there, and all of that. And aside from that, with the tax reform, the collection of tax is going to happen. And obviously, a lot of funds would be collected. A lot of tax will be collected. Now, how or where do you think these monies go? And how come Nigeria, at the end of the day, is way behind when it comes to funds? And I'm coupling a lot of questions.
Yes, and talking about, there's still another one that is not being talked about.
At this point. And then when it comes to accountability, do you think that in probing there is favoritism?
Oh, absolutely. Whatever the president has interest in will be funded 100%. Whatever the president is not very comfortable with, or maybe feels is not, within his scale of 1, 2, they defer. So, for example, health is a major for the populace. You hear that the budget for this health only received 35 million. National budget for health received 35 million for a fiscal year. That tells you where the interest of the administration is. That's one. Two, to your question, the reality is that our budgetary allocations is one thing. The releases is a different kettle of fish entirely. So the administration copied the coordinating minister of the economy from the Jonathan administration without understanding the pedigree of the person that held that position before and what that person probably did. The idea behind the coordinating minister of the economy is for economic growth and economic stabilization, all right? So that's one angle. But in this case, the coordinator of the economy within this administration, and I stand to be corrected, is more like to determine when and who gets what at what time. Last year, the president openly said that they've received all the revenue they need for the year. I think it was around August or July. Only for the same economic minister to come and tell us that they've only received 10% of the revenues they desire. We don't know who is telling the truth. I would rather believe the coordinating minister because he's the one that receives
the helm at the
he's the one that receives the money. On one hand, I also would want to believe the president because he was the one that was elected, and the buck stops at his table. But unfortunately, we run an elitist government, okay? It's the government of the elite for the elite by the elite. It's not the government that is interested in you and I. Because if it is, the government will prioritize road construction that carries more people. The government will prioritize health care access, all right? The government will prioritize the basic needs of the, of the populace. Unfortunately, what and where you see the government voting and releasing funds to is one, vehicles for the National Assembly, every year, every 2 years. Vehicle for the office of the Vice President, vehicle for the President. They've been changing the, he started with a BMW, then went to an American SUV, then, anyway.
All right.
Unfortunately, we have so much to ask, but
the time is up.
Time is up. Yes.
I really wanted to ask this, but next time.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel, for coming to Daybreak.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you very much for being here.